Hello everybody, my name is Katie and I'm here to talk about creating your first webcomic. So I've been reading webcomics for a while now and I've noticed a few things about the creation process involved with the content. In this video I'll be going over some of the things I've noticed both as a consumer and as a new creator. For the sake of organization, the video will be divided into 3 parts that I think are incredibly important in creating your first webcomic: writing, drawing, and publishing. The first step in the process is to decide what kind of story you want it to be. In my opinion, one of the great things about webcomics is that you can create so many different kinds of content, from long plot-heavy stories to short comic strips without continuity to anywhere in the middle. No matter what you choose, they can all be used to entertain an audience. The format you choose will create the platform for the rest of the process. From there, you can come up with a story idea and begin creating your characters. For some people, coming up with a story will be the easiest part of the process, especially if you already have some idea of what you want it to be about. If you have no idea what you want it to be about yet, then my advice is to create a story that you'd want to read. Some comics can last for years, so make sure that whatever story you end up creating, you use one that you enjoy. As for your characters, I personally believe that they may be one of the most important aspects in a story. I say this because often when a reader cares about the characters, they will often be more invested in the story as a whole and what will happen to those characters. Not to put too much pressure on you, as long as your characters aren't totally flat or total Mary Sues, you should be good. Lastly, I recommend that you have some sort of document where you can write down the notes and ideas for your story and characters so you don't forget about them. After coming up with your story, the next step is to create the visuals. I think my biggest piece of advice when it comes to the art is to keep things relatively simple. Comic pages tend to take a while to create, so if your style is simpler, you'll be able to get more content out. I'm not saying that you can't add any detail. Trust me, that doesn't work. You just shouldn't feel pressure to make it a masterpiece, especially if it's your first comic. However, simplistic design is incredibly important when it comes to your characters. When you design a character, make sure to keep in mind that you'll have to draw them over and over again. A character with tons of details will be harder to remember, which could slow down your drawing time. Simple designs will also come in handy if you end up wanting to create merch for your comic. This may be unlikely if this is your first comic, but it's worth keeping in mind. Other design aspects that you will have to make decisions on are coloring and layout. My advice for both is to experiment. Do you prefer bright colors or pastel? With your layout, do you want the visuals to be right next to each other or more spaced out? You can decide what looks more appealing. Don't be afraid to mix and match. Find something that you're comfortable with. Ideally, you should do this part before publishing, but if you change your mind early on, you can still make some changes. I'm currently experimenting myself. I want to adjust my colors since I thought the ones I had been using were very dull and not what I wanted. Once you're done with your first comic page, the final step is to release it into the world by publishing it. There are a few places where you can post your comic. The biggest two, and in my opinion, the best choices, are Tapas and Webtoon. There are ups and downs to both, but there are a few things that you should probably understand about these platforms. The first thing is that they're both desktop platforms, meaning that you can only upload pages on a computer. They also both have revenue opportunities, so if in the future you're interested in making money from your work, you can look into that. Each has their own requirements for earning revenue, so it'll probably be a while before you get anything. As for the actual uploading, Webtoon will only take JPEGs, and Tapas will take either JPEGs or PNGs. One thing Tapas has over Webtoon, in my opinion, is that you can schedule uploads for the future. That way it'll be easier to have a consistent upload schedule. Lastly, when it comes to uploading, there's something very important you need to understand. The way that the websites work, they have very small upload size. So if you don't want your work to be confined to that space, there are a couple of ways I've found to deal with this. The first one, and the one that I used at first, was to take your comic and simply shrink it down to the right size. This worked alright, but I found that it tended to make the images a bit blurry and weird looking in places. The second idea is one that I've recently discovered, but seems to work out pretty well. It's to simply cut the pages into pieces and upload them separately. Both websites are available to upload multiple pieces of a page. You could probably do this yourself, but I also found a website that'll do it for you, which personally feels easier. I'll link it down in the description. So now all you need to do is start creating. I hope this video was helpful as you begin your first comic. If I could offer one more piece of advice, though, it would be that you will make mistakes, and there's no way around it. But that's not a bad thing, because it gives you a chance to learn. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's true. No matter what mistakes you've made, whether you think your art stunk or your hitting was awkward, keep going, because you will improve. Just remember to have fun with your comic. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you around.